So thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to come back to New York. It reminds me a lot of my hometown back in Brazil, which is São Paulo. It's a big city, it's chaotic, but it never sleeps. And it has everything you can take, right? So shows, restaurants, it's always a pleasure to be here. The last talk was really inspiring, and it really resonated with me. Because during my career, I guess all I did was risk-taking, right? So I started out as a programmer back in 1990. So I was hired to code in Visual Basic and C and C++. But I always had a passion for network security and security in general, right? Back in my teenage years, all I did was hang around IRC chats. I'm not sure if anyone reminds that, those eras. BBSs, looking for exploits. And at that time, those exploits, they didn't actually came working. So you actually need to do some digging to make it work. So I did know a little bit of programming. So everything that was available at that time was programming jobs, so I took it. And then after that, after a couple of years, there was an opportunity to join a growing internet provider, a small one, but growing. And at that time, I had to learn a lot about Cisco. So I had to take in the CCNA, learn routing and switching. I already knew a lot of Linux, but I had to manage a lot of servers. So everything, I have to manage the company's website, the email server, the DHCP server, the DNS server, the dial-in, the radio server. So, but still, I wasn't really where I wanted to be. And then some time went by, and I had the opportunity to really start working in security. But at that time, security was really, really in its infancy. Right, so the most advanced product we had at that time was the Firewall 1 from Check Point. And there was really no IP. There was a couple of ones, but not really good ones, like intrusion detection systems, right? So, and we had no money for an IPS system. So all we did was basically get Check Point Firewall 1 and install a snort in a lot of our systems. And our alerting system was the snort rules detection that was basically sending a pager message to us. So, and then time went by, and I was able to, after working a few years on security, to join the Fortinet cybersecurity sales team in São Paulo, Brazil, as a sales engineer. That was a challenge of its own. Fortinet had at that time, and it has even more now, more cybersecurity solutions that any engineer can remember. I challenge you to go to a system engineer for Fortinet and ask him to name all cybersecurity solutions that we sell. It's impossible. It's too big. It's a lot of cybersecurity solution. That's because we want to basically be the one-stop shop for our cybersecurity needs. But at that time, I didn't know a lot of cybersecurity solutions from Fortinet, and I had to talk to customers who have been using the solutions for years. So I can't remember how many nights I've spent reading documentation from Fortinet to actually go in front of the customer and talk like an expert, right? But a little bit about my latest work on Fortinet, and just so you guys know, and maybe I can help you address some issues you guys have. Now I'm the Director of Advanced Threat Intelligence for Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs. And that means I had to work with everything threat intelligence, right? So I keep stacking hats at Fortinet, but one of the most pressing issues that I have to do right now is making sure that our threat intelligence program advances to adopt new standards, new toolings, and new methodologies. And to do that, I am partnering with the MITRE TID, which is Center for Threat Informed Defense. And with them, we're looking at the threat intelligence landscape and understanding gaps in defense. So basically, okay, if you come across a specific threat intelligence news, let's say it's a new vulnerability, it's a new threat actor, it's a new malware, whatever it is, how do you translate that to your risk exposure, your gaps? What do you need to do? So if you're doing this, there's a lot of friction in that process. So the work we're doing with MITRE CTID is to basically find those gaps, develop projects, and once the projects are fully developed, we open source them. And once they are open sourced, then I'm actually advocating for the use of those projects, methodologies, or standards to be embedded into Fortinet products or solutions. I'm also working a lot with threat intelligence from our telemetry. So Fortinet has millions of security devices that span across the entire attack surface, deployed across all regions and all industries. So they all report back to our data centers in Burnaby and other locations. And I have just basically a trove of data related to security incidents in the whole world. So one of my main areas of work, other than MITRE, is basically scripting and creating infrastructure to pull data from FortiGates, which are firewalls, EDRs, sandboxes, web application firewalls, correlate all that information, getting threat intelligence from partners, enriching that, and trying to understand what is going on with the threat landscape. And when I do understand, we do publish a report. So it's an annual report that goes out. It's called the Global Threat Landscape Report. And in that report, we try to answer the most pressing questions that CISO has, right? So what is the threat landscape looking like? How has it changed? And what can we expect? And what to defend? What actions must take now to defend ourselves against the threats of tomorrow? So this talk, I'm really going to talk about threat informed SecOps, which is an approach that focuses on understanding your adversary at every level and applying that understanding to prioritize SecOps processes. So SecOps processes like detection engineering, purple teaming, they really have to be prioritized because otherwise you're just shooting blind, right? And there's a new approach we're starting to develop that at Fortinet, which is called localized threat intelligence. And what most people do is basically they try to get threat feeds, sometimes regional threat feeds, sometimes threat-specific threat feeds, like I want to see all adversaries from China, or I want to see all adversaries that are targeting financial services. But this will never be as good as your own threat intelligence, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So when looking at the threat profiles of APT versus cybercrime, they used to differ a lot when it comes to the techniques they use to further their objectives, right? So when looking at nation state and APT, they were heavily focused on espionage. They're looking for our intellectual property. If they are not looking for your intellectual property, they are actually looking to destroy your systems because they want to cause a blackout on a specific region. And that's really kinetic with war as well. When there's wars, physical wars going on, cyber wars escalate, right? And what they do is that once a nation-state threat actor has their crosshairs on you, they will take as long as it takes to actually identify your vulnerabilities, weaponize them, and use it against you, right? So they were not worried when they're going to get in, but how are they going to get in, right? So they focused a lot on reconnaissance and weaponization. And when it comes to the MITRE attack, weaponization is kind of like where most of the work is done. Specifically, if you're trying to find a vulnerability that no one knows and weaponize it, right? Creating an exploit to explore that vulnerability and gain access to a system. When looking at cybercrime, they didn't do a lot of reconnaissance and a lot of weaponization. They usually relied on off-the-shelf exploits, off-the-shelf malware, and they were shooting everywhere, right? So they just wanted to ransom a specific company, get the money, basically sell credentials. They're just after the money, so they didn't really care about it. But over the last few years, and that's greatly as we theorize, by the use of AI systems and LLMs in general, we have come to a conclusion that now cybercrime is also persistent. So LLMs and the general use of AI gave rise to advanced persistent cybercrime. And that's not just because of the advancements in AI, but because cybercrime has been doing what they're doing for so long that they have the resources, they have the skills to actually do reconnaissance and weaponization themselves. So right now, if a cybercrime gang thinks you're a good target for a ransomware, they're gonna get in. Okay, it's just a matter of when and how they're gonna get in, right? So now let's talk a little bit about legacy offense versus defense. Cybersecurity has been an ongoing cat and mouse game, and it's obvious, right? Attackers, they need to create new phishing campaigns. They need to develop new malicious code. They need to find new vulnerabilities. And in doing so, think like a video game and anniversary, right? They're powering it up, powering themselves up. They're getting new, novel ways to do stuff, and this has been accelerated by LLMs. We don't see phishing emails with typos anymore. That era is gone, right? And when they did some research and they were able to create a new compelling phishing campaign or send email from a specific non-malicious server, they actually got a hold of a server that actually can send email, and it's sending from a specific domain, or they are sending new malicious payload that will bypass traditional antivirus but might get caught by sandbox. Once that hits our defensive network, we break it down, right? We want to see, okay, so what is this malicious code made of? Oh, it's using this and this syscalls. It's calling for this and this IP. It's using that protocol. And then we understand what it's doing, and we put out updated engines definitions and updated signature definitions. Sometimes a malicious code can be caught by a signature. So we just update a signature or we create a new one. Other times, there could be a malicious executable that exploits a library that we have on an AV engine. So a signature won't cut it. So we need to understand that vulnerability, update our engine. So if that engine processes that specific malicious payload, it won't crash or it won't get owned by that specific malicious payload. And we update it, right? So they power it up, we look at, we power it up. And that basically creates a protective outer shell for known threats and similar to known threats, right? So that's a living, breathing system that gets fed by our continuous analysis in the backend. And this system can, to a very good extent, stop malicious code that we've identified and vary a lot of variants, right? And I'm looking at the telemetry for Fortinet, and one of the telemetry points that we have is hash data, right? So when looking at hash data for malicious payloads that were identified on the field, out of 10,000 hashes, we only have the files for like 100, 200 of them, which means that our signatures generalize pretty well. They are able to capture the intricacies of different versions and variations. But it's still a protective outer shell that needs external feeds to actually improve itself. So when it comes to active defense, back in 2018, 2017, Fortinet started thinking about how can we leverage internal threat telemetry to improve the security posture of the environment. So we started looking at ways in which you could integrate our solutions to leverage threat intelligence from one solution to actually be pulled into another solution so they can continuously evaluate and block things that they know. So one very simple example is a network that has 40 gates and has a sandbox, right? So let's say that FortiGate has AV, but it failed to detect any specific malicious payload that was delivered to a user in your network. That payload, if configured on the FortiGate or on the FortiClient, can be sent to FortiSandbox for analysis. Let's say that FortiSandbox identifies it's a malware. AV couldn't do it, but Sandbox, by executing it in a controlled environment, was actually able to unpack it, run it on a Windows system, say, aha, this is malicious. And when identified that it was malicious, it also identified specific IP addresses, domains, or URLs that it was calling to. So that information from the URLs, IOCs, any other things, can be sent to the FortiGate to block further communication from that malicious payload that might be in your network and spreading to their communications, control and communications servers, right? So it might be in your network, but it's contained, right? It's not going to be able to ping back. And ever since, we've been developing new integrations with NDR, EDR, so it's kind of like an active defense in itself for things that might be in your network already. Okay, we know how legacy cyber defense and offensive cyber operations work, but now let's look at state-of-the-art defensive operations. So what we're trying to build at Fortinet is the ability of all of our cybersecurity solutions to express threat intelligence according to the MITRE standard. Do you guys know MITRE and ATT&CK? You guys know? Okay, cool. So MITRE, for those of you who don't know, it's basically a framework that allows organizations to curate, express, and share threat intelligence related to intrusions, right? So it has tactics, which goes from reconnaissance all the way to exfiltration and impact. And along those tactics, you have hundreds of techniques. And on each technique, there's sub-techniques. And under sub-techniques, there are procedural level implementations of a given sub-technique. And it's a growing standard, right? So every 6 months or so, the MITRE Corporation, with their partners, and we are one of them, we collaborate to say, hey, over the last 6 months, we found new techniques, we found new procedural level of specific techniques, we find new groups, and that standard gets updated, and then all other vendors can look at the standard, which is open source, and see if they have detection for procedural level implementation of techniques, if they are missing a specific sub-technique, and work together to actively improve their defenses, right? So what we're doing here at Fortinet is basically allowing every single cybersecurity solution that we have to express threats according to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So specific cybersecurity solutions have their own place and their own capability when it comes to detecting threats at every specific tactic level. So FortiGates, they're firewalls. They can stop delivery of malware. They can stop exfiltration of malware. Sandbox can do everything from delivery through exfiltration. NDR can do a lot of lateral movement and persistence techniques. So imagine you have a fully instrumented environment that can capture every phase of the attack. And then all those security solutions are calling back to a security, an orchestration, a response tool, which is FortiSOAR, to actually give you a map of the threats that are targeting you. And why do we need this? Because now we're talking about looking at MITRE ATT&CK TTPs, right? So instead of looking at code blocks, IP addresses, hashes, things that are ephemeral, an attacker can easily change that. We're looking at what we call invariant behaviors, things that the attacker must do to get into your environment and to achieve their objectives. So let's say that we have this environment fully instrumented, that all of our cybersecurity solutions can speak MITRE ATT&CK, and that a threat hits your environment. It's analyzed by all cybersecurity solutions. Cybersecurity solutions are able to express that threat data, and what you're going to end up having is a MITRE ATT&CK heat map of the threats that are targeting you. You don't need external feeds. You don't need, it's targeting you. If you have the ability to extract all of that information and create your own personalized, tailored threat profile, you can drive your SecOps processes, right? but they're going to say, hey, it's my cybersecurity, this is being stopped. Why do I care? Well, because every single row in there can have a new specific way to be implemented. And that might mean that you're going to have to look at other data sources to pull that data. That might mean that you're going to have to improve your cybersecurity analytics if you have SIEM and you're doing some things manually. So it's just a start. It's not the end, right? So when you have your adversarial telemetry and you have your defensive capabilities, and there are companies doing just that. They're just going through every cybersecurity vendor and understanding, hey, what do you have? Oh, I have an EDR. Oh, okay. What is your defensive capabilities? And which defensive capabilities are enabled by features or options in your product? And they're mapping that, right? And we're partners with them. So the idea is to actually overlap those and see, okay, where are my gaps? Which techniques seen heavily in my environment, and I have the capability to detect but not mitigate, or mitigate but not respond automatically to, right? And when you have this, you have the prioritized techniques for each. You have to look for deeper. Are these techniques do I have all the data sources to detect those techniques? Are my analytics robust for the ones I'm actually writing? How can I ask my red team or my purple team to actually look deeper at this technique to see if they maybe can find a new way to do it? And maybe there's a new data source that nobody looked upon. Just to give you guys an example, when looking at the privilege escalation tactic, we have boot or logon auto start execution. And there's a couple of ways to detect it, and depending on the way the attacker is implementing, you have a different data source. So when doing this exercise, you might find out that your SIEM or your EDR does look at Active Directory object modification and command execution, but not OS API execution or not user account metadata. So it's just an exercise to get you guys thinking about how to prioritize and how much more work has to be done so you can actually have this active defense. Even so, it's not a one size fits all, and it's not going to be easy, but it must be done. So this is what happens, right? So attack would happen. You're going to have to extract operational intelligence, and then you can feed prioritized ways to do purple teaming, threat hunting, and detection engineering. So when an attack happens, obviously, the availability of security tools within a specific environment and the capabilities of those security toolings to articulate threat information into MITRE ATT&CK data will determine how comprehensively you can profile current threat data. Obviously, the bigger the number of tools you have, the more accurately you're going to be able to reconstruct the entire attack chain, right? So obviously, this step is crucial because it's the very initial data set that you're going to have to work with. So if you don't have an NDR, if you are missing on CNAPP data, on cloud data, you're going to have gaps. It's not impossible to do, but you gotta be mindful, right? Then comes the part where you extract threat intelligence from all your cybersecurity solutions, right? This is the initial step in comprehending and restructuring every phase of attacks based on their capabilities and their location in the network. As I said, FortiGates can provide insights into the exploitation and delivery phases. EDR and Sandbox, that middle part there, right? And NDR, obviously, is the cherry on top because attackers can't hide from the network. And if you are able to pair EDR data with NDR, with Sandbox, with FortiGate, you already have more than enough to go around, right? At least to get started. And then you can actually prioritize purple teaming exercises. If you look at specific techniques that are used over and over and over again against your environment, that means that it is aligned with the objective that from that threat actor that is targeting you. they're going to have to do this some way or somehow. So better to actually look at data sources, look at your signatures, look at detection engineering, and just make sure that your blue team is aligned with that. Make sure that the red team is focusing on finding new ways to actually implement a technique. And I'm going to say it's not hard. It's not hard at all to come up with a new technique to do something that has already been done, especially with LLMs right now. Obviously, threat hunting, you can have specific things you look for that occurs constantly in an environment, but looking for things that might not happen is also important, because obviously techniques that have not occurred yet does not mean that they will never occur. So this is why it's important to have your red team actually working on these techniques, right, to find new ways. And obviously, detection engineering. This is the phase that will build upon the efforts of previous stages to pinpoint potential visibility gaps in current security controls, right? So this is done a lot by ourselves at the product level. So every time there's a new outbreak, Fortinet puts out threat hunting packs. We put out outbreak alerts that will function through all of our security solutions, right? After that, it's important to identify for every single, at least the red ones, the prioritized techniques, what can you do? Can we detect? Oh, good. Can we mitigate? Better. Can we actively, automatically respond, at least to make sure that we contextualize the incident and deliver it to the incident response team, right? So obviously, sometimes due to technological roadblocks, customer environments, disabled features at the product level, all we can do is detect but not mitigate. And that's part of the risk analysis to make sure, okay, we can only detect this. So make sure that if we detect this, this is the number one thing we have to do, because we can't do anything else. We have to block it somewhere else in the network or do something else, right? Mitigate means that you proactively stop any given behavior from occurring in your network. Obviously, sometimes due to constraints, because it's a critical asset, sometimes we see this on OT networks. Even if you have malicious code running on a process that opens the gates of a dam, the process must run, right? So keep that in mind. And respond is the last step. So many organizations currently that are currently capable of responding to at least a couple of the scenarios and the techniques, they've done their homework, right? They've gone to iterations of testing, seeing how specific playbooks respond, which type of information can be contextualized or gathered from other environments. So it's a meticulous process that demands patience, right? Obviously, only after multiple interactions, you're going to nail it right onto it. Yeah, realistically, organizations can achieve this by just honing the response playbooks, running them over and over again. So it's not an easy task. I'm not here to say that it is easy, but it must be done. But in order to respond, we can leverage AI, right? You don't have to actually do everything I've told you, otherwise, but we will be very good. But you can come across a symptom in your network and work from there, right? So let's say there's a slow server. Someone is complaining about a server. Well, you can actually use AI to go through that incident, gather information, and create a response playbook, just talking to a cybersecurity solution. So we've been, for the last couple of years, embedding LLMs into every cybersecurity solution we have. So FortiManager, FortiAnalyzer, FortiSOAR, FortiSIEM, you can talk to the product. You can say, hey, what is this alert about? Was it seen somewhere else in my network? Which threat actor is it associated to? What can I do to hunt for other indicators of compromise in my environment? So I'm not sure. I have audio here. Let me just see.
Hi there. Please retrieve the incident for the slow server.
Can you guys hear that? Okay. So this is Robert May, our EVP of Product and Solutions.
Hello. I found an incident related to the issue you mentioned. This incident, IN00000011, involves the file backup server at IP address 172.16.88.23, categorized as malicious code with a high severity level. The reported issue is that the server is running slow. Would you like to check more details about this particular endpoint? I can provide additional information and offer a FortiAnalyzer playbook via FortiClient EMS connector for further investigation. Note, ensure that the FortiClient EMS connector is properly configured for seamless integration.
So we started with a symptom, right? There's a slow server. Okay. So you are the SOC analyst, let's say. Instead of reaching out to the guy that managed the server, actually asking him to, hey, can you see if there's a process that is consuming a lot of CPU cycles, and then wait for him to respond to you. You can actually, if you have all integrated, as the AI just mentioned, you have to have the FortiClient EMS connector. We do. So it's just a matter of saying, okay, let's continue.
Yes, please run the FortiClient playbook.
Performance overview. The file backup server, 172.16.8823, is experiencing slowdowns, primarily due to the QCloud process consuming 98% of the CPU. Process details. In addition to QCloud, other processes like Apache, SSHD, etc. are also running on the server. Recommendations. Further checks on the IP 136.243.90.99 using FortiGuard and VirusTotal are recommended.
Okay, so it ran the playbook. It identified critical processes that are consuming CPU, and let's work from there.
Sounds good. Please investigate this public IP address.
FortiGuard alert, threat, Monero.cryptocurrency miner, impact, network resource consumption, technologies involved, browser-based, network protocol, client-server, peer-to-peer, cloud-based, mobile device. Observed behavior, excessive bandwidth usage on default ports TCP80 and TCP443. Potential consequence, server slowness on 172.16.88.23 may be due to a Monero cryptocurrency miner. Recommendations. Immediate remediation steps are strongly recommended to address and eliminate this potential security threat. Credit, FortiGuard application control signature information, fortiguard.com/appcontrol/440.
So according to the IP address that it was beaconing out to and the process, it was able to identify what kind of threat it is, right, and how to respond.
Please search for any other IP addresses connecting to the same malicious IP.
Investigation result. Sources attempting to connect to malicious IP, 136.243.90.99. The FortiAnalyzer API query has identified multiple sources attempting to connect to the malicious IP. Notably, the server at IP address 172.62.88.23, currently experiencing slowness, is among them. Recommendations. Investigate source IPs for potential threats. Check FortiAnalyzer threat hunting for more information on 136.243.90.99.
Okay, so I identified that the threat has actually spread, and there are other endpoints communicating to the same malicious IP.
Please load the threat hunting page so I can take a look.
Sure, I've redirected you to the FortiAnalyzer threat hunting page with a focus on the malicious destination IP, 136.243.90.99. If you have any questions or need further assistance, don't hesitate to ask.
Okay. So it's gathering more information across the environment to see what is the extent of the intrusion.
Thank you. Please search for abnormal login activity related to these source IP addresses.
I've investigated the login events related to source IP 172.688.23 from the threat hunting list. Here's a detailed summary of the login attempts. If you'd like to explore these login attempts in more detail, I can take you to the log view for a closer examination. Would you like to proceed?
Sure, please proceed.
To examine the Linux server login logs forwarded to FortiAnalyzer by FortiClient, apply the following filter in FortiAnalyzer log view. Considering the potential brute force attempt identified in the login logs, it is recommended to perform a vulnerability scan on the affected Linux server. This scan can help identify and address potential security weaknesses. Please initiate a vulnerability scan on the Linux server using your preferred scanning tool or platform. If you need assistance with specific scanning procedures or recommendations, feel free to ask.
Please reassign the incident to the forensics team.
Sure thing. Before I do the handoff, do you want to block the IP on FortiGate to the CryptoMiner server?
Makes sense, right?
136.243.9.99 and quarantine all infected hosts?
Good idea. Please go ahead.
I have successfully executed the following actions. 1. Blocking IP. The playbook block IP was executed to block the IP address 136.243.90.99, which was associated with the suspicious QCloud process. These measures aim to enhance the security posture and mitigate potential threats identified during the investigation.
So we're already on the action, right? We're blocking things.
Please generate a report for this incident.
Sure thing. I've generated a preview of the following incident into a report for you. Would you like to save a copy of this report?
Yes, please download it to my computer.
All right. I've downloaded the report to your device.
Please also email a copy of the report to the CISO.
The incident summary report has been successfully sent to the Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, using the designated output profile. The email includes detailed information regarding the endpoint slowness incident, along with recommended actions and future recommendations. If there are any further inquiries or updates required, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Great. Please update the incident details and hand off to forensics team.
Understood. I've updated the incident with a new comment summarizing the issue.
So this is a very simple example, just to show you guys how you can actually interact almost like a human being with our products. And you can do this not for just the symptoms, but an actual alert. So if you are looking to understand techniques, this can be applied as well. It is just a very simple example to make sure that you guys understand the idea behind it and how, to which extent can this be used. So we've covered the GenAI, FortiAI feature, FortiAnalyzer SIEM service, Analyzer SOAR feature, FortiAnalyzer SOC module, and Fabric connectors. So I'm happy to take any questions. I think we're out on time. Thank you so much.